Hi YouTubers, today we're going to talk about presidential campaign tokens, specifically those between 1840 and 1856. And I thought I'd start with this Andrew Jackson token. So it pictures General Andrew Jackson on the front, and on the reverse it says, "The Hero of New Orleans." It's worn out, but that is what it says. So this is the first real presidential campaign token to picture the candidate. This would have been worn by his supporters during the campaign, and you'd only see a handful of others until the election of 1840. Now, in 1840, William Henry Harrison ran against incumbent Martin Van Buren. Now, Martin Van Buren only had a handful of tokens, but William Henry Harrison and the Whig Party produced thousands of tokens. There are many varieties. There aren't thousands of varieties, but there are thousands of tokens. Even today, you can still find these in pretty good condition and fairly cheaply. So this one pictures a classic log cabin on the back with the barrel of cider, the hero of Tippecanoe. Of course, you probably heard the phrase Tippecanoe in Tyler 2. That was for this election. So William Henry Harrison would win the election, but died in office just 30 days later. Now we jump ahead to the election of 1844, and James Polk was a Democrat, and he really disliked the Whig tactics of putting out lots of little tokens and things like that. So there are very few James K. Polk pieces. In fact, this one is a copy. A real one is a lot of money and very rare. Of course, it has Polk and Dallas on the back. Now, he ran against Henry Clay. Henry Clay was a Whig candidate, and there are many varieties of tokens for him as well. In fact, Henry Clay ran for president several times, so even when he wasn't the main candidate, there are usually a handful of tokens for him. 1844 was probably his best chance to be president, but he lost to James K. Polk. We go up to 1848, and we have Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor was a military general. The Whigs were pretty famous for running military generals. The Democrats ran one of their own, being General Lewis Cass. Now again, Zachary Taylor pieces, he's the Whig candidate. There are several different varieties for Zachary Taylor, and there are very few for Lewis Cass. So Lewis Cass items are pretty rare, whereas Zachary Taylor's is not super common, but definitely not as rare as a Lewis Cass piece. So Zachary Taylor would win as president, and just like the last Whig president, he would die in office 2 years later. And a little side note of the election of 1848 is that Martin Van Buren ran for president again, mainly because he didn't like Lewis Cass, and he ran as Free Soil candidate and took votes away from Cass. So in 1852, you see Franklin Pierce, Democrat, against the last Whig candidate, Winfield Scott, and he was also a general. In fact, Winfield Scott is one of the longest served people in the U.S. military ever. He served for nearly 50 years, from the War of 1812, which is depicted on the reverse of this coin. He was wounded in the Battle of Lundy's Lane, right up to the Civil War. But despite being pretty popular, he would lose to Franklin Pierce. And of course, Franklin Pierce is generally regarded as one of the worst presidents. But that brings us to the election of 1856, when maybe we do see the worst president in James Buchanan. So James Buchanan ran against the first Republican candidate, John C. Fremont. And Millard Fillmore also ran in that election. So we do see a Millard Fillmore token at this point. So Millard Fillmore had been president after Zachary Taylor passed away. So these are some of the campaign tokens that you see. One thing that you'll notice is most of them are hold, and they were hold so that they could be suspended and worn from a brooch or a pin or a ribbon. If they're not hold, I would be slightly suspect of them. And I think a lot of coin collectors shy away from them because they are hold. In fact, you'll even notice this one that's graded. It's not graded, it just says AU details because it was hold, which I think is a shame. I think that for these kind of political metals, the hold doesn't detract from them. Like I said, if they weren't hold, I would be suspect, especially with these early ones. I think it's kind of fun to think that they were worn, by supporters of these candidates back in the 1840s and 50s. A lot of them have fairly neat sayings on the back. We won't get into that much detail. It's, in a later video, I'll go over some of the later campaign tokens. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thank you.